What's up, everybody? Emceemur here, and welcome back, finally, to a fresh new episode of Video Game Prices in the 90s. And today, Season 2 ready to kick off with a bang. So much great stuff still to look at in this series. Hope you enjoyed last season. If you are not caught up on last season, I will put a link to that playlist right here for you to check out. But I gotta tell you, we're in for a great time. And we have something to spice this episode up a little bit. In subsequent episodes, we have a special artifact sent to us from a fellow YouTuber. That's right, Rocker Gaming, the mod man, the man with the mods, the guy that can do a GameCube up with so many custom neon lights that'll make you drop kick your grandma out a 10-story window. Fantastic stuff this guy does with consoles and controllers. I want you to check it out. I want you to check him out. I will leave a link to his channel in the description of this video. Great dude. I can't even show you what it is yet. Can't show you what he sent. That'll come later in this episode, and you'll see how it ties in. First off, we got to get started. We got to take a look at what games are on this episode's invoice. The first game on this invoice is Final Zone for the Sega Genesis. Final Zone is just fantastic, but then again, all Renovation products were. This game was so unique with its isometric top-down look and seemingly open exploration, being as the whole level just kind of looped. You're on the hunt for all these enemies, trying to satisfy the net goal for the round before you move on to the boss battles. It had cool graphics. It had so many unique weapon systems, that being part of the customization and the depth that this game offered. And more than anything, it just had a rockin' soundtrack, which again, Renovation products are no stranger to. Very cool game. This is one I have just loved all my life. Next on this invoice, also on the Sega Genesis, Rock and Roll Racing. Rock and Roll Racing was the bomb. I mean, just absolutely amazing game. It takes, a page out of the RC Pro-Am playbook, but it really starts to build on what they did there. There's so much customization to the cars that you can do. Solid gameplay. And what really makes it unique is the soundtrack. You're going to recognize some old school rock tunes on this game, on its soundtrack, chip-tune-ish as they may be, but you'll recognize them and it's going to make you grin just a little bit. But overall, this game just looked great. It played great. It was one of those that was enhanced by use of the 6-button controller. I can't say enough good things about it. Play this game any way you can get your hands on it. Next game on the invoice, Ironsword, Wizards and Warriors 2. So Wizards and Warriors 2 just builds on what the first one did. Same kind of game, but really vivid colors, really good looking game, but still that really awkward style of play. It wasn't awkward back then. I mean, we didn't ask questions back then. We weren't so critical of games back in the day, but it is an odd duck in that, you jump the way you do and you basically just bound into the enemy's sword pointed out and hope you stab somebody. You spend more time in this game falling off of stuff to your death than you do actually climbing up or winning or anything like that. But it had such a mystique to it, such an allure, not only in just the soundtrack that was as cool as it was, but in the plethora of items that there were to find in this game, and the fact that you probably won't find them all, but that you really needed to. Just a really unique product. The whole franchise is. This is the second one. To me, I mean, it was more common than the first as far as people that I knew that actually had it, but a great game that I have a lot of great memories with. Alright, let's get down on a little receipt action here. This one is another microplay receipt, and this one is dated April the 11th, 1999. First one on the list, we had Final Zone, coming in at $5.95. I'm really not sure what that goes for loose, but I would definitely pay that today to have it. Now, Rock and Roll Racing, on the other hand, that is complete in box, and it's pretty much known at this point that that's a pretty cool game. It's not a common. $8.95 for a complete copy. I'm interested to see what that one has done in the market. Now, Ironsword, I mean, it was common then and it's common now. $4.95 for a loose cart. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's retail now, or at least close to it, but we can't know for sure. Let's go to the numbers and see what kind of money these are bringing in 2019. Next on the invoice, we have Mega Man 2. You don't need me to tell you about Mega Man 2, arguably the best Mega Man in the series, I think it is. To scale, I mean to form, honestly, because it was such a huge step up from the first Mega Man. Mega Man really grew its legs here. We realized what to expect from this series from then on with the password save and whatnot. And this game, to me, might have one of, if not the best soundtrack of all NES games. I mean, it's on up there with Mario and Zelda. I mean, it's just that memorable. Every last piece of it, the whole soundtrack. I mean, they just really knocked it out of the park with this game. Mega Man 2 is just fantastic. Next on the invoice, also on the Nintendo Entertainment System, we have the Bards Tale. So FCI did the NES version of the Bards Tale. Bards Tale was published by EA back in the day on PC, and that's where I really cut some teeth on this series, was the trilogy itself on old IBM computers and on my Atari ST. But there was an NES version, so eventually I had to have that, right? And no, it's not as good. It doesn't look as good, but it does what it does well. It's still the game, essentially. And that's what's most important, you know, function before form on these games. These games and the Ultimas and the Wizardries, you know, they aren't famed for being the best looking thing, but they're very immersive role-playing experiences. Bards Tale is one of my favorite RPGs of all time, bar none. Absolutely had to have the NES version. I'd like to have it complete in box someday. Last on the invoice, and certainly not least, another classic you do not need me to tell you about, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. Compared to the arcade version, let's be honest, this didn't look very good. And how could it? It was an NES game, you know, I mean, that's where we were on games at that point in history. The arcade versions, when they'd come home, just didn't look as good, but we weren't critical of them. Again, we just weren't that critical about games back then. I loved this game. Everybody loved it. To be able to have any version of this at home to play, that was good enough. More than good enough. Thrilled to have this. I mean, everybody I knew had this. And, you know, I went to many a neighbor's and friend's house and just spent hours and hours on this game. Beat it countless times, and of course eventually had to have it in my own library as I started building up NES stuff in the collection. Such a fantastic game, but was it a fantastic price? So bringing it on home here in the second half of the invoice, we've got Mega Man 2 coming in at $7.95 for cart and manual. I'd say that's probably pretty good by today's standards. I mean, Mega Man 2 is not rare. I mean, there's plenty of them out there, but it's also not going to be a cheap game because it's a great game. At least that's my prediction. Then we've got the Bards Tale. You know, this was not a amazing version of the Bards Tale or anything. $4.95 was all that ran me for a cartridge-only copy back then. I would imagine it's more than that now, but probably not too much more. And then we've got Turtles 2, the arcade game. Now, for $5.95, I'm getting a cartridge-only copy of that. I've got to imagine that's gone up a little bit, regardless of how common it is. It's sought after. It's a game I imagine people are still buying today, as loved as it is. But again, we don't know until we go to the actual numbers and see what kind of values these have in 2019. Let's check it out now. That's all the games for this invoice. But now, about that artifact we discussed earlier, sent to us from Rocker Gaming. I want to take a look at that with you right now and tell you why specifically we're looking at it. Here it is. It's a Funko Land holiday mailer from December of 1993. So this is curious indeed, and it's going to be an interesting thing to bring in as something for reference in this series. I did so much business with this company back in the day. This is straight from, Eden Prairie, the mothership, before these started having actual retail locations around. At least I'm not sure what year that actually started, but I know back then for me, everything I did with these people was over the phone, by mail, etc., etc. So this is neat, because again, a lot of the receipts we've looked at on this show are mid-90s and up. I don't have a lot of receipts from the early 90s. I just have what I have, unfortunately, and that was the basis, the reason for this whole series, the fact that I still have them. This allows us an additional point of reference to compare some of the prices on games we've already looked at on the series to what they might have been earlier. A lot of these games experienced a garbage phase later on in life, if you will, as they really hit rock bottom on value, and of course as of this point in time that hadn't happened yet. And I wanted to go ahead and look at some real obvious ones on this list that were neat to me and raised a lot of questions. One in particular right here at the top, Little Samson for $29.90. I don't know anybody that would pass on that deal. The question is, did they have stock? I mean, at this point when I received this in the mail, if I did, could I have ordered that? Could I have ordered 2 or 3 of them? Could I have handed them out as stocking stuffers for Christmas? Obviously this was a holiday mailer. Again, we have December and but my God, I mean, did they have stock at that point? And I wonder if anybody has a story about buying those games at that point for a price like that. Because I know I bought some of my most expensive games in the 90s and didn't pay much for them compared to what they're worth now. Same deal here, and it's the same price, strangely enough. And I don't know why that is. Stadium Events for $29.90. Again, don't know anybody that would pass up on that deal. But there it is. Again, did they have stock? Could I have purchased that? Could I have purchased 2? It's just phenomenal. So we're going to look back at our other invoice, and I want to compare some of what we looked at today versus what they have on this sheet here as far as a price or a value. Because again, these were prices that you could buy from them. Funko also gave you money in trade for your games, but this is obviously a for sale sheet. At a certain point, they had bought all they wanted to buy, and I think they just went to selling. So we have here, we looked at Mega Man 2 today, so I see that here. We're going to go ahead and look at that. $11.90 is what they're asking. And then, again, back to our invoice from this episode, we have it here for $7.95. Now, I realize this is not a Funko invoice, but a few of them we've looked at so far in the series have been. And many of them we're going to look at in the not-too-distant future on this show also will be. So again, that makes this even more important as a point of reference to see how prices declined, you know, as we got closer to Y2K and all that good stuff. Let's look at a couple more here. Let's take a look at Turtles 2, because we looked at that. All the Turtles games are right here. They've got Turtles 2 listed at $14.90. And then here, of course, we bought it for about $6. So we're talking about a period of, you know, about between 5 and 6 years that some of these games went down as much as half, you know, in their values. And they continued to go down as time progressed, and we're going to see that as this series progresses. We're going to see what happened to values on these overall and see some of my best deals I've ever gotten. Man, that was a lot of fun. I'm glad to be back on this series. I'm glad we're going to have a season 2. There is still so much to look at on this. So many invoices, so many great games, and so many memories. I want to thank Rocker Gaming for sending out that neat piece to look at there. That's going to be a tool we will reference in future episodes as well, just to kind of compare and contrast. After all, that's what this series is about, while having a great time looking at the games, of course. But I hope you're glad to see this back. I hope you are enjoying what you're seeing here. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're going to like this video. I hope, most importantly, if you have not already done so, you're going to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the Emceemur Show. Be a part of our nation. We're rising up all the fantastic things we do right here on the show. You need to be a part of it. Make sure that you smack that notification bell so you are always the first to know when new content goes live. You know that I love making it for you. Video game prices in the 90s back, and hopefully it's back to stay. I hope everybody enjoys it going forward. So much more to show you. Thanks for dropping in. Emceemur signing off for this episode, and I will see each and every one of you again next time.